The world of the faith is sad. The powerful voice and heart of the Mississippi Mass Choir, Mama Mosie Burks, has died at the age of 92. But what happened in her last days and during the service at her funeral? Even the strongest sounds in gospel music were shaking. Don't leave yet, because this goodbye was different from anything we've seen before. In the world of gospel music, there are legends and talents that carry on through the years. Mama Mosie Burks had one of those rare voices that could move people to tears. Her sound raised millions of people and shook every church she went into, but her voice is no longer heard. When Mosie Burks died at the age of 92, she left behind not only a large body of music, but also a deep spiritual mark that will last forever. But what really happened in the days before she died? How did the Mississippi Mass Choir say their last goodbyes? She helped the group become a world gospel force. How did something at her funeral make even the toughest people cry? We're going to talk about Mama Mosie Burks' life, death, and unforgettable goodbye in this video. We'll share stories that fans never heard, honor the woman behind the voice, and take you inside the emotional moments of her final tribute. You have no idea who showed up. What was heard will blow your mind. Your last message to the world is something you won't want to miss. This is where it gets strong. This is where her real impact starts. We need to honor her life before we mourn her death. Mosie Burks, who everyone loved and called Mama Mosie, wasn't just a singer. Her life was full of joy, praise, and the fire-filled gospel. She was a vessel. Mosie Burks was born in 1931 in the middle of Mississippi. He came from a poor family. Her voice wasn't just a skill, it was a gift, a spiritual weapon that could bring grown men to their knees and make church pews shake with the sound of deliverance. She grew up in a big family with deep roots in the black church. She sang even when she was in pain or poor, or during the civil rights fight. Her voice helped her stay strong. She sang in a small church choir and was a star there before she joined a big choir. On Sunday mornings, she led soulful hymns that touched heaven. But the world didn't really meet her until the Mississippi Mass Choir called in the late 1980s. Frank Williams put together the choir, and Mosie Burks quickly became one of its most famous and loved star singers. She put on exciting shows. She did more than sing the message. She lived it. No matter if she was singing When I Rose This Morning or God's Been Good to Me, Mama Mosie had a powerful, joyful faith that could light up arenas. No matter how old she got, Mosie never slowed down. She traveled, preached, and acted well into her early 90s and early 80s. She always wore a signature hat and her voice never lost its fire. She didn't want to be famous. It went after her. She didn't sing to get cheers. She sang to make God look good. That's why her death was sad for more than just church music. People, the society, and the church all lost something. What did she do in the last few months of her life? How did she die at the age of 92? What did people in the church world think behind the scenes? That's where the story really gets interesting. From the outside, Mama Mosie Burks looked like she could do no wrong. Her loud voice, lively personality, and trademark church hats made it seem like time couldn't affect her. And it didn't in a lot of ways. She sang with the Mississippi Mass Choir well into her 90s, going on trips for gospel events and acting like she was still 30 at church anniversaries. But there was a quiet fight going on behind the beautiful smile and powerful voice. People who were close to the family say that Mama Mosie's body started to slow down in her later years, not her spirit. She was said to be having health problems linked to getting older, like tiredness and joint pain, and had quietly cut back on long trips. She didn't want to complain, though. People came to her front door, among others, to hear her sing one more time. They were neighbors, visitors, and caregivers. A churchgoer from Jackson, Mississippi, said she would sit in a chair and sing even when she couldn't move much. When she closed her eyes and lifted one hand, it seemed like God was in the room. Even though she was weak, she was still ministering and giving others strength while gently getting ready for her transition. Friends who knew her well say she talked a lot about spiritually and literally getting her house in order. She wasn't scared of dying. It made her happy because it meant she would be with the Father she had sung about her whole life. During her last few months, she was allegedly surrounded by family, church leaders, and choir members who prayed with her, sang with her, and just sat with her. There were no big goodbyes, posts on social media, or pictures of her in the hospital. There were only quiet strength and a peaceful withdrawal into the arms of her faith. There was a strong moment just a few weeks before she died. When choir members came to see Mosie alone, she asked them to sing near the cross. They were singing together in the living room, and she was said to have joined in with a weak voice and tears in her eyes. She said in a whisper, "That's how I want to go out with a song in my soul after the last Amen." She seemed to know that the time had come. She died gently, surrounded by love and filled with prayer, and held by the spirit that kept her going for 92 amazing years. There was no fuss or news coverage. It was just a quiet end for a person in heaven. A few days later, the formal statement was made public by the Mississippi Mass Choir. "We told everyone about the death of our beloved Mosie Burks, who was our mother, our sister in Christ, and the heartbeat of our mission. She put up a good fight. She kept the faith, and now her crown is hers. It was terrible for the gospel group." Many famous people like Shirley Caesar, Kirk Franklin, Donnie McClurkin, and Yolanda Adams sent tributes. Many of them had grown up watching her, singing with her, or being blessed by her ministry. The strongest honor, though, was still to come. Because what happened in that church on the day of her funeral shook the pews and touched the heavens. A party to celebrate life turned into something magical that no one saw coming. No one in Jackson, Mississippi had ever seen anything like it before. As soon as word spread that Mama Mosie Burks had died, it was clear that this would not be a normal funeral. It would be a celebration of life, but it would also shake people to their core, People who loved gospel music went to church, sang in choirs, and even people from out of state came to Jackson to honor the woman whose voice had helped them through the worst times of their lives. New Hope Baptist Church was the place of the service. A huge sanctuary that is often used for church meetings across the state. But that day, it became a holy place. There were people in the church for hours before the service even started. A lot of people stood outside, some holding fans and some holding pictures. Many of them were crying before anyone even spoke. Inside, Mosie's white and gold coffin was at the front and was surrounded by tall arrangements of white roses, lilies, and magnolias. It was displayed next to her signature church hat, which was a simple reminder of how elegant and classy she was. The music, on the other hand, made the service feel like heaven. The room went quiet when the Mississippi Mass Choir took their place. They were dressed in long robes and were wiping their eyes. The group then started to sing "When I Rose This Morning" without any instruments. As soon as their words were heard, a powerful wave went through the crowd. People stood up. With their hands raised, they yelled praise and cried at the same time. People in the choir say it seemed like Mosie was singing with them. Some of them broke down in the middle of the song, while others sang louder, as if each note were a last gift to her memory. One person who saw it said, "It wasn't just a funeral, it was an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. I've never felt like someone was so close to me. It felt like a little bit of heaven had opened up." Legends of church each told a story about her life. Shirley Caesar gave a moving speech in which she called Mosie a brave hero who never gave up. Pastor Marvin Sapp paid respect to Mama Mosie by saying, "She wasn't just gospel singer, she was gospel." This made everyone in the crowd cry. Her voice was like reading the Bible in song. The most moving part, though, was a film montage that put together some of her most powerful performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes moments. As her voice filled the room one last time, videos of her dancing, testifying, laughing, and kissing fans played. Some people in the crowd were crying out loud, while others clapped along with her acts as if they were real. Finally, the band did something strange to end the service. Their request was for everyone in the room to stand up and sing Mosie's favorite song, "I'll Fly Away." Voices rose together. People moved around, yelled, and clapped. Some people danced in the aisles. It wasn't just a funeral anymore, a party for going home, the kind you only hear about but don't really experience. The crowd gave the choir a standing ovation at the end, not for their performance, but for a life well lived, USAB. There was a woman who carried the gospel on her back, gave her all to service, and died the same way she lived, in victory. A white horse-drawn carriage was waiting outside the church to take her body to its final resting place. Hundreds of people stood in the streets, some singing and some holding lights in silence. No matter their background, faith, or fame, they were in that moment together. The things Mosie left behind are even more powerful than the funeral, because by no means is this story over. The church world is still shaking because of her, even though she doesn't speak. People from all over the world feel a loss when someone like Mosie Burks dies. Her legacy is so ingrained in the gospel community that she ministers even after she's dead. She didn't just lead songs, she led lives. You can't just look at the stage to understand how she affected people. Yes, Mosie was one of the lead singers for the Mississippi Mass Choir, which became famous all over the world. Mosie was a bridge, though. She was the link between the old and the new, between the psalms our grandmothers sang and the praise songs we sing today. She made it all feel like it was linked in some way. Her versions of songs like I'm Not Tired Yet, When I Rose This Morning, and Your Grace and Mercy did more than just make people laugh, they changed them. There are even pastors and church leaders who say that whole altar calls would start as soon as Mosie opened her mouth to sing. There was no difference in how people felt when Mosie Burks led worship, young or old, Baptist or Pentecostal, broken or whole. Everyone felt like God was speaking directly to them. Gospel singers now follow her style of praise, which is full of joy, reverence, spontaneity, and a deep link with the soul. She didn't practice how she felt. She gave from the heart in everything she... That's why her words could be heard in prisons, hospitals, and churches around the world through speakers and screens. Her impact isn't just music, though. It's also spiritual, cultural, and social. First, a moral legacy. Mosie's dedication was never about how well he did. Prayer, humility, and work were important parts of her life. She helped younger choir members, prayed for Christians who were having a hard time, and ministered just as strongly behind the scenes as she did in front of thousands. 2. A culture history. Mosie's path was a quiet revolution. She is a black woman from Mississippi who became famous all over the world. She kept alive the rich history of Southern gospel, folk spirituals, and hand-clapping, foot-stomping church music that goes all the way back to slavery. With grace and honor, she carried that sound forward. 3. A legacy for the neighborhood. Mosie had always been close to her roots. Even though she was famous, she was still easy to talk to. She only needed a microphone and an open heart. She did charity work, went to revivals, and supported local causes in Jackson and all over Mississippi. People knew her, not just her voice, the next-door neighbor, the mother figure, the teacher. 4. Effects on many generations. A lot of younger gospel acts look up to singers like Tamala Mann, Landria Johnson, and even Jonathan McReynolds have talked about how important gospel pioneers like Mosie were to them in interviews. Her skill and energy as a praise and worship leader have made her an example for new artists who want to find a balance between being real and being great. Now that the world is getting over her death, there is a new wave of respect. Her music has returned to the charts. The number of streams has gone through the roof. Old recordings are being shared like holy relics, and whole churches have set aside whole Sundays to honor her memory. Plans are already being made for tribute performances. Gospel networks are putting together full shows about her life and work, but this may be the most telling sign of how long her influence will last. People don't just listen to Mosie's music, they can feel them again. Even though she isn't there, her singing is still helping them heal, grieve, and praise her. That might be the point too, since Mosie Burks never wanted praise. She wished everyone could find God. Every note she played was a prayer, and every show was an offering. And now that giving goes on, every voice she raised, every soul she touched, and every heart that still hears her sing, even when it's quiet. But you need to see one more thing, because in her last message to the world, which she taped a few weeks before she died, Mosie said goodbye in a way that is still being heard today. The most powerful words come to us when we least expect them. In the last few weeks of her life, Mama Mosie Burks shared a message with her church family that would become her unofficial goodbye to the world. Even though her health was getting worse and she didn't want to be seen by many people. It wasn't planned and wasn't shown on TV. It came from the heart and was simple and quiet. The moment took place at her home church in Jackson on a Sunday morning. Her turn to speak hadn't been planned, but she slowly got up from her place when it was her turn. The room stopped moving. In one hand, Mama Mosie held a cane, and in the other, she held a wrapped handkerchief. Even though she moved slowly, she was very strong. They turned their full attention to her, even though they were already emotional from praise. She then said, "I want you all to know I'm ready if the Lord calls me home tomorrow. I sang my last song and rode out my last storm, and I still got praise. Do not cry for too long. Do not stop playing. That's what will keep me living." The whole church fell apart. Some people got up. Some people got up. Some yelled while others sobbed. It wasn't just a goodbye. It felt good to let go, be blessed, and pass the torch from one family to the next. She ended by singing one last line of the hymn, "It is well with my soul," in a soft but clear voice. "When peace comes my way like a river." For everyone in the room that day, that last note, which was shaking but holy, will always be remembered. Some people there caught the event on their phones. Mama Mosie didn't know at the time that this would be the last public moment she would ever share. Since then, that video has been shared a lot on gospel Facebook pages, YouTube feeds, and church pages all over the South. It makes people cry, remember, and celebrate her life all over again every time it's played. Her last message wasn't just a call for peace, though. It was an order to do something. Pastors started reading her words from the pulpit in the weeks after she died. "Do not cry for too long. Do not stop playing." It was used as a gathering cry. Songs were written by choirs to honor her. During prayer circles, church women used her words. The phrase was all over social media, but keep singing, Mama. People in church groups all over the country promised to keep her sound, spirit, and message alive. A lot of gospel radio stations even played her last story on the air, with all of her most famous songs playing after it. It was a proper tribute to a woman whose voice helped many people feel better. And maybe most importantly, her message is now being used to help people who are grieving. One fan wrote online, "This year I lost my mother. It felt like I couldn't breathe. Just keep singing," Mama Mosie told me, "so don't cry for too long." That made me remember that praise is strong, even when you're hurt. Someone else said, "I didn't know her before she died, but I can't stop listening now. Her voice makes me feel like I'm alive again." That's how prophetic Mosie Burks' last words were. That wasn't why they did it for fame or history books. These things were meant to help. They are doing more now than she ever thought possible. As this emotional trip comes to an end, there is one last truth that we must face. Even though Mama Mosie is no longer with us, her love, words, and spirit will always be heard.